Welcome to the New World Order Showcase Podcast. Your host, Jill Hart, the Coach's Alchemist. Couldn't be more excited to have you join us today. On this podcast, we celebrate the champions of change, the up-and-coming life, health and transformational coaches who are fearlessly stepping forward to make a difference in the world. Get ready for inspiring stories, practical tips, and powerful moments that will motivate you to make a positive change in your life and those around you. We're happy to have you join us on this incredible journey as we dive into the world of life, health, and transformational coaches who are lighting up the path towards a better tomorrow.
Thanks for joining us today for the New World Order Podcast Showcase. I'm your host, Kasey Leon. I'm extremely excited about today's episode. Something I personally don't have a lot of information about, so I'm looking to learn a lot. And I have Rajesh, a master Reiki teacher, and I am so intrigued to learn about what you do, where you started this from, your story, everything about Reiki, because I will admit I don't know a lot about it myself. So I'm going to be learning a lot today. I hope you listeners are going to be learning a lot today. Without further ado, Rajesh, why don't you tell everyone about yourself, your story, and what you're doing?
Hey, Kasey, I'm from Singapore. I'm excited to be here today. So my background is like, I'm actually a chemistry teacher. I was training chemistry and I taught chemistry. And so Reiki kind of like fell into my lap pretty much accidentally, I want to say. So in around 2012, I discovered that my ex-husband was having an affair. And I was like 25, maybe 27 at the time. And none of my friends were married. If they were married, their husbands were not having an affair. So, kind of like Googling and like random friends were recommending like I can go for something called past life regression. So I was like, what's that? But I was willing to try anything once because I was in this mindset of, oh, I have a problem. I'm going to fix it. I'm just going to throw money at the problem and then fix it as fast as I can. So I went for the regression. And one of the things that showed up was to try Reiki as a way of healing the relationship. So then I did something naughty. I took time off work and went for a Reiki afternoon circle. It's like a group of people would gather. And there was some chanting, and this lady gave us like, she did a random set of things with her hands, and she's like, oh, you now have Reiki, and you can perform Reiki on each other for like 3 days or something. And it was so cultish and such a weird vibe that I was like, I don't like this, and I kind of like got out of it like real quick. But 10 years later, my friend told me about Reiki, and she said that she did 3 sessions of Reiki. She had a boyfriend after 3 sessions. And I was like, yeah, I want a boyfriend. I'm going to do Reiki and go get a boyfriend. So that's kind of what started my journey back into Reiki. It took me a decade to go back into it. So it's sad to say that I did not have a boyfriend by the time my sessions were done. But I did seek out my practitioner for things like when my good friend passed away by suicide, I felt like the grief was very overwhelming. And when I saw a psychologist or other people, it was very hard to have language to tell them what I was feeling. When I was with Reiki, I would just sit there and receive the Reiki energy. So I felt like it was such a gentle, soothing modality. And I felt so good after the sessions. Like I kind of wanted to be able to do this for other people as well. So that's where my journey with Reiki is.
Oh, I love that. I love it was so personal for you. Yeah. And then it took you 10 years after that.
Yes.
It still took you 10 years to kind of say, okay, maybe I should look into this a little bit. Maybe this could benefit me. So why don't you tell us just about what it is? What is Reiki? What is the practice of Reiki and what are the benefits?
So I feel like it took me 10 years only because there was very little information on it. Like, I reckon you haven't tried Reiki before, right? Yeah, and I didn't do Reiki until I heard about it. So I have done like reading. I read like maybe 100 books on it. On like Reiki and Akashic records and systemic constellation, and it was like a lot of things, but I thought Reiki was the the gentlest modality and something that even a layperson could receive. So what it is essentially source energy. I know how to connect to my higher self, and I know how to channel energy to you. So let's say when you are in New York right now and I'm in Singapore, my computer knows how to talk to your computer. Like there's a frequency through which our devices are communicating, and essentially we're energetic beings, and I would have something in me like a modulator or something, and that would know how to talk to the frequency in your body. So in essence, I can send energy to you even all the way in New York. Like I've tried it before with my friend. When I first did it, I had an American friend. I told him, Tom, I'm going to try on you, because if you receive it, then I can do it for anybody, anywhere in the world.
Right.
So it's an energy healing modality, and the benefits would be, the science of it is that you would be getting the body into the parasympathetic nervous system. Like we have the fight, flight, and freeze states. And Reiki just gets someone out of those states, because those states are very like reactive or very regressive. Like someone will kind of retreat from a problem, go into depression, or they'll be very aggressive and very confrontational with people. And those are not good spaces to be in. They're not resourceful places to be in. Whereas with Reiki, if you calm them down enough that they can take a look at their problem in a bigger picture, the next useful for everybody. So it's essentially just getting someone out of the fight, flight, freeze state. But the benefits is that it calms them down. Some people come in with intentions, like they come in to have a relationship, or they come in to have a child. Like I have a few friends who have had miscarriages and they wanted to get a child and they did. Or they come in because they're not getting paid for projects. So the benefits are like so wild, so vast, but predominantly you feel good. Like you're essentially paying me to feel better at the end of the session.
Wow. So it sounds like it could benefit for any number of factors. Is there something that you mentioned, someone who had, history of miscarrying and wanted to have a child, they messed in relationship, grief as well. What are you seeing as the most, I guess, the highest amount of people? So what are they coming in for? Like
Most
as
of my
far as the
clients,
reason?
Sure. Most of my clients have been coming to me for money-related issues. Like someone wasn't able to sell her house, and we did a bit of Reiki around it, and she sold it for like 100K over asking price. And it's like weird. Like I can't control the outcome. I can just send energy to the problem. And then sometimes sometimes I think we approach things with a very needy energy. So they always say this with money, that if money was your friend, and if you're sitting opposite your friend and you were telling your friend like, hey, don't go, I need you, please don't leave me. It's a very needy energy, and money is like repelled by the energy. So if we just kind of like send some energy to like soothe the person or soothe the money, then the money is like, okay, come, you're playful, you're cheerful now, I'm going to hang out with you.
So I love this because it almost seems like it gets your body in such a relaxed state that whatever challenge that you're maybe facing at that moment, and we mentioned a few, it's giving almost like a biological way to deal with it. Because a lot of people, right? So a lot of people may
Yes.
not know how to handle certain situations, or, do you find that a lot of people, because they don't know about it, tend to say, ooh, I've never heard of Reiki, seems a little out there. Do you get a lot of pushback to, like that? Like, how does this work? Like, like being skeptical is probably the word I'm looking for. So do you find that to be like an issue?
It is, but I don't blame them. I mean, it took me 10 years to get to this point, right? So I feel like if I speak to someone and they get there like quicker, anytime quicker, then 10 years, that's a win. But there has been a lot of education around it. So I'm trying to get like on as many podcasts, go talk to people about it. Somehow the conversations around my friends are also changing. I've been posting very aggressively on my Instagram, and all of them are like, what's Reiki? Tell me about it. So I feel like if enough of us are doing it, then it should pick up in time, because it's something that we could all work with, right? It's breathing. Like we breathe to modulate, to regulate our nervous system, and there are all these other tools like stretching and yoga. And Reiki is just something else which you can use. Like essentially, I think we have many tools that you can use. Reiki just seems to be the tool that I like to work with. And my mentor has said this before, that you can have like a whole toolbox of like EFT, which is like tapping on acupressure points on your face, systemic constellations and all that. But I keep going back to Reiki. And he was like, yeah, you only need one tool. You only need to know how to tie your shoelaces one way. So I told her, like, try it once. And if you don't like it, then, don't do it. Go try something else. Like you will find something else that works for you. So usually the pushback is like, why am I paying you when I don't even see you? Like all my work is remote. So I don't even meet them online. I'll just be like, okay, tell me what time you're free. If it's a mutual time, then we'll go ahead, make the payment, and then I'll do the Reiki for you. So a lot of them are like, oh, it's weird because I don't even see you like holding your hands. You're nowhere near me. You're not hovering. You're not even talking to me on the device. And I'm like, yeah, but go lay down for 10 minutes. I'll give them a PDF guide on how to prepare for the session, but I'll tell them to lay down for 10 minutes. And if they're not feeling it, I'm like, okay, yeah, then take it as a free session and then go off and do your thing. But usually in 10 minutes, I'll ask them like, how do you feel the flow of energy? And the flow of energy usually shows up for people as like sensations. It can be like hot or cold. It could show up as tingling. Some of them see like images or visions, and then they can share this with me during the session. So usually like if you give them like a 10-minute or 15-minute like feeler into the session, then they're a bit more open about it. Like I think there's always this cynical part of us is like, why is this working? But I don't need to know how my body is using the oxygen. Like sure, I know where it's going, like the lungs and all, like, but I don't actually have to know like the ATP and the ADP and the NADPH. Like I don't need to know all those cycles that it takes part in.
It's so interesting to me because I think I think it would be more successful. Am I correct in saying this? If it would be more successful of a treatment if the person is open to it.
Yes.
Correct. And it comes quicker, right? Is that what you're saying?
I feel like it would come on quicker, but essentially like what Reiki is doing is even when people come to me with an intention, I'll tell them like, hey, I'll program the intention into the Reiki, but can you be open to like whatever shows up? And there's this thing called a healing crisis because there's all these like suppressed emotions and like repressed emotions within the person's psyche. And the Reiki just like clearing it like really quickly. So for some people, it can be overwhelming. And I tell them like, yeah, drink a lot of water. It's just the toxins moving through your system. But I don't know if you've seen like roses before. Like if you get a lot of roses, which I like buying like lots of roses, they always come with something called gut petals on the outside of the rose. So you're sort of like peeling away the layers of the rose. The gut petals protect the rose. And so we have all set up like guts against like people's energies, or we're so hurt, we're so traumatized that we're just trying to protect our little hearts. But in doing so, you close yourself up to like so much joy and so much enjoyment and stuff with life. Like you close yourself up to like being enthusiastic about life. So with Reiki, it's just kind of like disassembling all these layers so that the rose inside you can like finally bloom. The premise is that everyone's 100% perfect anyway. We just have like conditioning that we're trying to shed away.
Oh, I get it. This is so fascinating to me. Do you ever have anybody that comes to you with not something specific? So, maybe not a money issue, maybe not a relationship issue or something like that, but they seem off. They're not balanced. They seem lost or something like that. Like, have you ever had someone come to you like, I just like with that peeling, does that go into it? I know I may not sound very educated on this, but I'm fascinated. It's just, it's very, very interesting.
I hear you. I think most people have like a problem. So most of my people are like money people. They want to sort out some money issue. Or like me, they're trying to figure out what's with relationships. And it's very interesting. But I struggle getting into like aligned relationships. Like they're aligned for a while, but because I think I move so quickly in my own spiritual development that my person can't keep up with me. And we end up going off in like different tangents. So have there been people who come to me? I think I've had one. And then I use this thing called human design. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it.
No.
So if you give me like your birth city, your birth date, and your birth time, I would key it into a computer software thing. And then it would tell me things like your crown chakra is open or your third eye center is open. It would give me certain guidelines on like what I could work on with this person. So if say their root center is open, like we have 7 chakra systems in the body. Actually, we have 22, but 7 is the main chakra systems. And so I will look at that and then see, okay, what do they maybe need help with? So I find that human design is a framework. And it gives me some clues, especially when this person is always coming to me and saying like, I don't know what to do. But the thing is, I don't know what to do is a state that we are choosing. You're choosing to know you're choosing to not know what to do. And it so happens that there's a zone of comfort. Like you're choosing to be in that state. And we stay in this state until it becomes so uncomfortable that we get out of it. So in those cases, I'll like look at the chart, tell them to do things that could be supportive, like grounding, grounding could look like going out in nature. So if I look at a chart and they have maybe 3 open centers, I'll tell them like you have to go meditate for like 45 minutes a day or go for walks for 45 minutes a day. So I use like another framework to help me support the Reiki so that there's some like tangible steps to do by the end. Like I'll give them prompts like go journal on this. But a lot of times, like in fact, if they come to me with like no problems to solve, like, oh, I'm here and I'm just going to try it, I feel like that's actually the best thing to do, because I was just having this conversation with my friend that we're all perfect beings. Like the truth is that we're all 100% perfect, but with all this conditioning. And so you could spend Reiki or prayers or affirmations, you could spend a lot of mental energy trying to solve a problem, but all our problems are also like illusions, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So because the problems are illusions, if someone comes to me with like no problem, but just like I want to get to a better feeling state, I feel like that state is actually a little bit easier to get to. Just like I find that the human nature is we like to have some tangible outcomes after the session. And then I'm like, oh yeah, so go do this, go do this. And then I think that satisfies like the ego part of them. But the spirit part of it came and received the Reiki. In fact, sometimes I feel like the Reiki would go to the client beforehand. Like when I first started my Reiki practice, I would do it for friends. And so I'll tell them like, pay me after the session. But on the day of the session, maybe I was going to meet them in 4 hours. They'll be like, Rajesh, I don't need a session. I feel really good. But I would feel drained. Then I learned after a while that actually the Reiki energy had already gone to them. Like we had a divine appointment, like the appointment was already done in ethers, and we just had to carry it out as like 3D characters. So after a while, like I talked to my mentor about it, and she's like, no, you have to ask the payment before you do the session for them. If not, you're going to keep getting drained. And I was like, that's true. And so then that stopped happening, like all the cancellations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's so interesting. So it already started. It had already started before you actually met. Wow, that's unbelievable. And how powerful. That's a testament to
Yes.
how really powerful it is. So when you do see your clients and you do have people come to you, is it like a one-time thing? Do they have to come multiple times? Or is that depending on the thing that they're trying to work on and solve?
I think like most of my friends do see me quite often. It's very interesting because I'm at a place in my business where I've like barely started for about a year when I'm starting to charge. Like I've done this like 2 to 3 years now, but I've started properly charging. And initially I was like, why would somebody pay me? You know? So I started with like $30, and I was quite randomly posting on Instagram like, pay me for Reiki, get a session of Reiki at this rate, and I could go buy like a food or drink. So I'll show them like my Michelin star restaurant thingy, and I'm like, yeah, support me in doing this and get Reiki. And the prices were like quite cheap at one point, like 38, 48. And I've gradually increased it to 120. And so I find that there are people who used to buy from me at the lower price points, but they're not so comfortable at the higher price points. And for them, I'm like, it's okay because there will be someone at their price point that they could work with. But for me, like it takes energy to do the work for them. Like what people are actually essentially paying me for is for me to meditate, for me to do the channeling, for me to work through my own emotions as they come up. Because the clearer I am, the better I can channel the Reiki for them as well. So in theory, Kasey can do the channeling yourself. You just need to sit down and meditate, but you may need to meditate like 5-6 hours a week.
Okay.
Like an hour a day. And we don't do that because we're all just looking for like quick fixes.
Yeah, that's exactly why I was asking, because I think people nowadays in society now, in the world now, everyone wants everything fixed now,
Yes.
or yesterday. And sometimes I think people need to understand that it is a process, and I love how it's an alternative to what society tends to push now with, if you go to a physician and, they're just going to give you a medication, most likely. It's just really comforting to know that there's other practices out there that don't necessarily have to jump, that it's within ourselves to heal our bodies. And I've always believed that. I always listen to my body when something's wrong. I rarely go to a doctor because I feel like my body is the one that's going to be handling all that.
Yes.
So like I rarely go to the doctor because I feel like sometimes when I do that, it sometimes makes me worse, right? So like I almost say like, I don't know if there's anything close to related, but I almost will myself to stay well. And if I do get sick, to kind of, maybe get through it quicker, or maybe, so there is, but it's a lot of inner type of work. And I love that it's becoming something that's more of a conversation, that's not looked at so much as, oh, that's a little weird. Like people are becoming more open to it, because I would much rather do something like this to kind of heal some of the woes that I personally deal with in my life than have to go to. Now, I'm not talking bad about the medical field, believe me, but it's there for a purpose. And obviously, you know, but I feel like if there's ways that we can do it in a more natural way, it just seems like kind of, to me at least, it seems like a no-brainer. Now, the only way that I ever knew about it is like I had a friend who used to do it religiously. But I never really asked her about it. She would just say that, you know, she had challenges and she would go and do her Reiki treatment. And the reason why I was asking about the longevity is that she always went, like she was like always going. So I didn't know if it was something where it's like, if you gave me a treatment, if you gave me, you know, if we had a session, would I be cured? Or do I have to come for 6 months? Or, you know, but I guess that really depends on the person. And it depends on how quickly you can connect the energy, correct? Because I understand that's a lot of work on your end of it. And that's fascinating.
It is. I mean, so it's a practice that's evolving. So right now, what it looks like for me is like 120 seems to be a fair rate to charge people. So some people do it like one-off. Then in an ideal world, they would get a package that would be like they would get a Reiki maybe once every 2 weeks or so. I would suggest like at least once every month. But currently I am working with someone in a container, which means she gets support from me every day. So she gets like mini boost of Reiki from me, depending on like what she talks about that day. So she's currently working through like her marriage and so she was like, what do I do with my marriage? Like, do I stay in it? Do I leave? And I was like, I'm not the best person to answer that question, but I can guide you through it, and we'll let the Reiki like show you what needs to be done. So for her, what that looks like at the moment is like a month of Reiki, like daily Reiki, and 4 sessions of distant Reiki for 1.5 hours. And I've given her a journal, because the journal questions I've channeled so that they can, as they write on the prompts, it would surface some feelings for them. And then we can uncover the feelings during the everyday Reiki, or if like details to me some things that happened for her during the week, they will do that during the weekly sessions. So it looks to me like I'm going to be doing more one-on-one work like that. And it's a good space for both of us, because it's like a big problem that we try to solve within a month for her as far as possible. Like, it's something that she's been dawdling on for like 4 years. So I was like, yeah, give me a month. Let's see where it goes. I can't promise it'll be done by the end of the month, but you should see like sufficient progress. Yeah, so that's where I'm at in terms of work at the moment. But you know, when you're asking like, would you be cured? It's almost like we, like, you know, the gut petal. We only have so many gut petals that you can pull away. And it's a bit like cleaning a window. If your window is dirty, maybe the first time you clean it is still going to be dirty. The second time you clean it is still dirty. But the third time it'll start to be cleaner and more light, more of your own inner light will come through. And so it's going to take a certain number of wipes. I can't promise how many wipes it takes. But yeah, it is what it is. So like say in a marriage scenario, when 2 people come together, essentially you're looking at the energies that she's bringing in, the energy that her partner is bringing in. They have a kid, and so then you also have to consider the dynamics of her husband with the child, her dynamics with the child, her parents' dynamics, and how that how that was a representation of what marriage is to her, and the husband's representations from his parents. So I feel like there's so many dynamics, and if you go all the way back to the grandparents, actually you're looking at many lines to like clear. So could it be fixed in like one time? Like possibly, but not highly probable. So I would normally say like do it once, see what happens for you, and if you like it and you come back within a certain time, I'll give you the package price. So it's always like them being open to try out certain things.
Yeah, so I imagine each circumstance you have to figure out how much work has to go into it, probably. Now my other question is, do you find, obviously there's energy in every person that you're having a session with or that you're connecting with. How do you physically connect with one person on that level, and then have to then kind of channel another person? That seems very fascinating to me. So like if you're in one session with me this morning, but then you have another session with a completely different person, completely different issues, completely different petals to peel off, how do you shift your energy to then another being?
Sure. I think maybe what we haven't gone into so well is this concept of the law of oneness. I think they cover this really well in Islam. But the idea is that you and I are one. Me and my client, the one that has a marriage issue is one person. So in theory, any work that I do on myself or any work that Kasey does to transform her trauma is actually transforming the collective, and we're all part of like the collective. So essentially, while I'm like look at your picture and let's say I'm channeling Reiki energy to you, you would get the Reiki, but so would anybody in your lineage. And so is anybody that has like some problem. So if let's say we're working on loneliness, there's also a collective loneliness that you would sort of be healing together.
I love that. I love that. How can people get in touch with you?
So I'm on Reiki Energetics. I think I'm most accessible on Instagram. It's ReikieNergetix. And my website is by the same name, but it's Reiki-Energetics.
I love that. I think that if people are open to this is a remarkable way to really get in tune with our bodies, especially in trying times like this. And like you said, even past things that we may not be realizing that we're holding on to. And I think it's, to gain that clarity for well-being is an absolutely beautiful thing. And I really, really thank you for sharing your story and what you're doing and how you're trying to help people. I think it's incredibly important.
Thank you, Kasey. My last plug is like, go do Reiki if you like, get it from me, get it from somebody else, but try it out. And if you don't do Reiki, like at least just sit down and meditate like 30 minutes a day, like do something for your own spiritual well-being.
Yeah, I love it. I would much rather do something beautiful and holistic like this any day. So thank you so much for opening my eyes. I know you opened the eyes of many of our listeners. Thank you for your time today, Rajesh. I love it.
Thank you, Kasey.
Thank you so much for tuning in to another empowering episode of the You World Order Showcase podcast. We hope you've enjoyed hearing from our incredible life, health, and transformational coaches who are making a profound impact on the world. Remember, change begins with you, and you have the power to transform your life and the lives of others. If you want to take that next step and unlock your true potential, visit thecoachesalchemist.com, where you can find the 3 ways we can help you for free to spin your talent into gold with clarity, a system, and a plan. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you never miss an inspiring episode. And if you enjoyed today's show, we'd greatly appreciate it if you could leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform. Your feedback means the world to us and helps us reach more people with our positive message. Stay connected with us on social media for updates, behind-the-scenes content, and upcoming guest announcements. You can find us on Facebook at the You World Order or simply visit thecoachesalchemist.com.